Hi, this is Christian.
And Sam.
With Button Mash Studios, and today we're going to be talking about Fallout New Vegas.
Fallout New Vegas is an open-world RPG which takes place in the post-apocalyptic Mojave Wasteland.
The player takes the role of a courier who is delivering a mysterious package when he was ambushed and shot by a man in a checkered suit. He later wakes up in the town of Goodsprings, and that's where the game begins.
The first thing you're going to notice about Fallout New Vegas is, at least in the beginning, it looks very good.
The copper and rust colors of the earth contrast well with the bright blue sky, which makes a very aesthetically appealing world.
Unfortunately, that contrast doesn't last forever, though, as when you start to reach the outer limits of New Vegas, the blue sky becomes a lot more grayish, like Fallout 3.
Yeah, I noticed that too, actually. And the city kind of looked like it came from Fallout 3. A lot of the detail objects and buildings looked similar to the ones in Fallout 3.
But before you ever get to New Vegas, all of the towns which lead up to it are very distinct from one another.
Right, like Goodsprings had an Old West type feel to it, where it was kind of mixed with the Fallout universe. You would see a building constructed of wood and scrap metal, and then just outside of that building you'd see a robot rolling around on one wheel.
Or like Novak, which is basically a tourist attraction which has a giant statue of a dinosaur right outside of its main building.
I really didn't like the fact that it took about 6 or 7 hours worth of gameplay to actually reach New Vegas. And then when I finally got to New Vegas, it was really samey and there wasn't a lot to do there.
I never got into New Vegas proper. I always was stuck outside of New Vegas. I couldn't pay the 2,000 caps that you needed to get into the main city, which of course, the outer part of the city is made up of, one street and 5 buildings, 3 of which you can't go into.
The city was an absolute disappointment, I agree with you on that one. And that wouldn't be so bad if at least the inhabitants of the world were competently animated.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I remember in the tutorial quest when you have to follow Sunny Smiles for about half a mile, the whole time I'm just watching her and her animation is jerking back and forth like she's got epilepsy.
That's true, and it's odd because only the human animations are that bad. A lot of the wildlife animations are a lot more believable looking.
Or even something humanoid like the super mutants look just fine.
And the feral ghouls, too. Another thing I noticed was that kill cams happened altogether too often, and they were usually really unrealistically gory. For example, I snuck up on somebody and shot them with my 10mm, and it completely blew their head off, in one piece.
Well, as you know, limbs in Fallout are held together by styrofoam.
Oh, and toothpicks.
And I think the system is really designed for you to do more of that with a high-powered rifle or a shotgun, or even something like a rocket launcher.
Yeah, but the problem is, it happens with pistols.
Right, and you don't need to take any special perks or even have that high of a skill with pistols to do that.
I just found that all kind of silly.
I just wish it wouldn't happen so often. Speaking of that, I think there really were just too many combat encounters in general. Just on the trip to New Vegas alone, I lost count of the amount of times that I got ambushed by bandits or some kind of wildlife.
Yeah, I really would have liked for there to be a non-combat encounter. Maybe where you meet someone on the road who's been hurt, or you meet up with a caravan and you decide to travel with them for a couple of miles and you hear stories from them.
I did actually have one non-combat encounter, come to think of it.
What was that?
I met up with this mysterious guitarist who was just traveling along the road with nothing but his acoustic guitar. And I talked to him, and he had a story to tell, and I think there might have been a quest associated with him at some point.
I never found that kind of thing, though. And you found that kind of thing once in how many attacks?
At least 6. At least. The biggest problem I have is that all of these combat encounters really start taking away from the combat, and you start realizing how lame the combat is and how uninvolving it is.
Yeah, the combat really only came down to either crouching behind cover and firing at ranged attackers, or walking backwards and shooting at melee attackers in the face.
You didn't even really need to aim when it came down to it, because it didn't matter if you shot an enemy in the chest or the head. Other than a minor damage variation, it would still take about 3 headshots to down most enemies.
Yeah, I realized that the health was really unrealistic in this game. You could take, X number of bullets, where X is an integer greater than 5.
Unless you happen to be going up against a rebar club, of course.
What?
There was one mission where I had to go up against several super mutants who, for some reason, managed to do more damage with a club than any number of bullets taken to my face.
That's just ridiculous.
This game doesn't really have a difficulty curve so much as it has a difficulty roller coaster. Some quests are ridiculously easy. I've had one where all I had to do was run across the map, pick up an item, and maybe shoot one gecko. And then another one where I had to clear out an entire basement of Nightkin, which are basically invisible super mutants.
With rebar clubs.
With rebar clubs that take out more of your health than any other weapon I've come across in the game. The rebar clubs do more damage to me than when I drop dynamite at my own feet. These difficulty spikes that just come up at seemingly random force you to start using the VAT system, and I absolutely hate the VAT system because I feel it takes a lot away from the rest of the game.
For those of you who don't know, when a player uses the VAT system, it pauses the game and gives different body parts different percentage chances of the player to hit, and then subsequently shoots at those body parts for the player. It was an attempt by Bethesda to mix the original roots of the game, which were turn-based, with the first-person shooter elements that they decided to add later.
I used the VAT system quite a lot when I played through Fallout 3, and in that game I find it was a lot more necessary because they didn't have the addition of iron sights, which didn't really allow for precision aiming. However, New Vegas adds iron sights, and it adds the ability to aim at precisely whatever you want in real time without slowing the game down. So I find the VAT system, in addition, forced on you to use whenever you enter an area that is far too difficult for your skill level, just because of the fact that you don't have enough hit points to do this quest. I just find that VATS breaks any kind of difficulty that the game is trying to have, and I just hate using it because it takes away from the experience for me.
It kind of felt like activating the cheat codes sometimes.
Yeah.
Which is a shame because I actually really liked the RPG elements of this game.
I did too, though I find that they were better suited for the older Fallout games.
The ones with an isometric viewpoint, you mean?
And that was just because on the older systems, the game worked a lot more like a tabletop, where you had a percentage chance to hit, a percentage chance to lockpick a door, a percentage chance to hack a computer, anything like that. I find with this, it doesn't really fit nearly as well, because what's the point of taking points in, say, the gun skill when I'm aiming for myself as it is? What's the point of taking sneak if sneaking never works? Now, I appreciate having all of these skills, and they do try and allow you to play the game in several ways, such as a very talkative character, or a stealthy character, or a combat-oriented character. In practice, they don't really work because everything just comes down to combat.
One RPG element that I really hated was karma.
Karma in New Vegas really doesn't make a whole lot of sense. I remember when I first reached Nipton, which is the town that's been taken over by Caesar's Legion. Caesar's Legion is basically the completely evil group of Fallout New Vegas that just murders anyone who doesn't agree with them. So of course you come to this town, everyone in it has been murdered except for one guy who you meet who has his legs broken. This man happens to be part of a gang that you've met before called the Powder Gangers. Almost as a joke, I thought it would be funny to just shoot this guy because he was a powder ganger. I didn't actually think the game was going to reward me with positive karma for killing this guy, though. He had broken legs and was completely helpless. To me, that really doesn't seem like a positive thing to do.
That's the problem with black and white morality systems in role-playing games. I had a similar issue where I ended up stealing from the man who shoots you in the beginning of the game. I went to the casino he owned, and I started stealing his things, and it gave me bad karma for it. And I thought, is this really an evil thing to do if this man shot me in the face?
And very likely you're just planning on killing him anyway if you see him, which very likely it would give you good karma for. So, killing is good, stealing is bad.
Stealing from anyone is bad. Even stealing from people who, if you killed, would give you good karma.
So we've been talking about a lot of the gameplay elements so far, so why don't we finally start talking about the story?
I thought that the intro cutscene was actually really well done. It got me very excited to play the game, but then the story kind of devolved into an incoherent mess.
I actually found the intro cutscene where the player gets shot to be a bit jarring.
Why's that?
It's really the only time that the game ever uses cutscenes.
Yeah, I noticed that actually.
And it's the only time that the game tries to polish up its own graphics.
Yeah, the cutscenes really did never return, did they?
No. I really have to wonder why they didn't do that scene in gameplay.
It probably would have been a lot more effective if they did it in gameplay, because it would have led the player to believe that there was some chance of escape. After the intro, there's really no escaping from the main plot of the game. You can't go off and do your own thing, really.
The most you can really do is just choose not to do the quests offered to you early on in Goodsprings and go directly for the main quest.
Another thing was, you couldn't go in any other direction but the direction the main quest wanted you to go into, because wildlife anywhere but the place that the main quest wanted you to go to was so high leveled that it would kill you immediately.
So when it comes down to it, the main plot really is just about this courier trying to find the person who shot him in the head.
What I don't understand is why you would be actively searching for someone who shot you in the head. What I would do is lay low, probably start up a new life for myself in a rural area, like Good Springs.
The player just has no motivation to go do this main quest because the main quest really doesn't involve the main character in any way.
Besides the fact that he was shot in the beginning in some kind of transaction that somehow dealt with the main quest, somehow.
Considering how many times the courier gets shot a day anyway, though, is this really that big of a deal?
Yeah, I would probably have to hunt down every bandit who shot me, right?
Even Fallout 3 was better in this regard because you spent the first 15 to 20 minutes of that game getting to know your father, and when he disappears, it's a big event not to just the character, but to the player. And that's how you have motivation. That's what makes you want to do the main quest. You don't have any of that in New Vegas, and that's why I got so bored with the game so quickly, because I wasn't motivated to keep playing it.
I think the final nail in this game's coffin is that it just was not immersive in any way.
When you look at the game as a whole, it's very impressive. The world is interesting. It seems like it would have interesting people. The visuals are decent. The gameplay, while seeming like nothing outstanding, looks competent. But it really is just a death by 1,000 cuts scenario. There are just so many tiny problems, and they all build up into just one major problem, and they make a game that is near unplayable and not a whole lot of fun. I found myself extremely bored playing Fallout New Vegas.
It really hurts me because I want to like this game, but I just can't.
I'm the person who loves Fallout 1 and 2. So the fact that I'm bored by this game says something.
So is that all you have?
Yeah, I'm done.
Alright, thanks for listening to Button Mash Studios. Next week, we'll be reviewing The Witcher 2. I'm excited.
Yeah.